Hello, my name is Christine, aka Crafti Potential, and I'm a crafter for Tonic Studios, and today I will be showing you how I made this beautiful card using the Spring Has Sprung collection from Tonic. So first of all, we want to start with our card blank. This can be top folding or side folding, and the size I'm using is 10.5 centimeters by 14 centimeters. And then I've also cut a panel to go on top of this, which is 10 centimeters by 13.5 centimeters. So it will fit really nicely with a little border all of the way around the edge. Then the next thing we want to do is sort of build up backwards from our card, getting our elements ready. So we are going to do a little bit of die cutting for the sentiment here, but to begin with, let's just start with getting our torn strip of paper ready. So I've picked this fantastic bee paper from the collection, and all I'm going to do is rip a small rectangle to kind of act as our grounding sort of area for where we're going to put our bike on this card. So I want the white edge to show, and where I've already ripped here, it's the opposite way round because I wanted the white edge on the first piece. So I'm going to do a skinny little torn area along this torn edge that I already have. Then I want the strip to be roughly 3 centimeters, so I'm then just going to start tearing all the way down the piece of paper like this. And when you are tearing, if you keep your thumb next to where you want your tear to happen, it's much easier to kind of guide it and stop you coming off at a narrower angle or a wider angle as you tear down. So we can just complete this tear all the way across our 8-inch paper. Then we can tear off one end. Have a look on our card to see where we want it to come to. We want it to come to about here, so we can then tear that end piece off as well. And we've got the first part of our card ready for us. So let's build the rest of our elements. And from the die set from the Spring Has Sprung collection, I have taken the tag die, cut it from one of the patterned papers. This one happens to have the foiling on the back, but I just really like that polka dot pattern with the purple. And then I've also cut one from the vintage white vellum from Craft Perfect as well. And we're going to layer that one just a little bit offset to the actual purple tag. Then for our kind of extra little sentiment, we have the die that says love in this collection. So I've actually cut one from black glitter card and one from white card, and then I'm going to layer them together to give a tiny little drop shadow, and that can be added just there to our card. Now, looking at the original card, the next things that we want to do all of the die cutting for and to build are this little bird and the bicycle itself. So let's have a go at die cutting all of the pieces ready for creating those elements. So for the little bird, I have cut the main body of the bird from a light blue cardstock. I think it's Arctic blue. For the belly of the bird, I've cut it from white cardstock. And then for the little tiny feet of the bird, I've cut that from the mustard yellow cardstock. And we can layer all of these up and use a fine black pen just to add a dot for the eye to give us our gorgeous little bird. I've also actually put a heart on the chest of this bird, and that falls out from the little flag that goes on the back of the bicycle. So for the bicycle itself, there are quite a few tiny little pieces that you need to cut to create it. The first piece being the main base of the bike. Then you want 2 of the wheels to go along with that. Also from the same colour as the wheels, I've also cut the little gear and pedal for the bike, and this lays on just there, covering up the little yellow pedal that was there, and the wheels line up, so one goes under the bike just there, and then the other one goes under the bike just there, like that. Then the next portion of the bike is to add some other extra little details. So we actually have a tiny little bike saddle, and I've cut it out of black glitter card to go with the drop shadow on the word love that we've already added. And then we've also got the tiny little handlebar as well, which I've also cut from black glitter card. Although, before we put the handle on, there is this little tassel die in the die set, which I think is meant to go on the handlebar to act as like one of those gorgeous little tassels. So you can actually stick that to the handlebar first, and then add your little black handlebar over the top as well. For the flag portion of the bike, I've cut one of the flag separate pieces from light blue and one from light purple, and I'm going to put the light blue flag piece and the purple heart onto there, and then this is where that little light blue heart has come from to put onto the bird. So those two pieces, we're going to use the heart for the bird, and then the little flag is not needed for this make. Then finally, the last element of the bike is to add the gorgeous basket on the front. So I have cut two of this main piece out from the mustard yellow cardstock, because I thought it would be nice to match the colour of the basket to the colour of the bike. And then I've cut one with the detail in. So this gives you that tiny little hole in the top, and it actually debosses some basket detail into there for you as well. We want to layer both of these up. And then for the flowers, you actually get two different dies, one that cuts you the solid of the flowers and one that cuts you the flowers with centres missing from them. So you want to cut the solid one from your centre that you want your flowers to be. So I've gone for a mustard yellow again, and we can place that onto our basket so it looks like we've got the flowers in the basket. Then I wanted a mixture of white and purple daisies, so I've cut the whole thing from purple, and we can layer that on top to give the yellow flower centres. And then I've also cut the whole thing from white. However, I just want one white flower in my bouquet, so I'm taking my little recoil snips because they're nice and precise for getting into the detail, and I'm just going to carefully snip off the other two flowers from the main larger white flower. So we can just take off those two little flowers to give us the tiny white one, and then we can layer that over the top to give our gorgeous little bouquet of flowers. And once you're happy with everything laid out, you can begin to stick all of the pieces down. And this will give you your tiny little bicycle all complete and put together. And actually you do have extra dies in the set which I think are meant to be flower centres, but the larger ones work really nicely to act as the centres of the wheels, and they just tie in that black glitter card. And I've also used the tiny little circle on the centre of the gear for the pedal as well, just to add a little bit more black glitter card into the design. And I've also left the basket separate for now, because when we add it to the card it looks really lovely if the basket is still floating above that portion of the bike, as you can see with some of the imagery in the rest of the collection as well. The basket is floating above that flat portion of the bike. So before we get on to sticking all of our finished pieces down, we want to actually add our sentiment onto this white panel on our card. So to do this, we're going to take this To My Special Friend Debossing die from the die set. It has a banner that you can cut it out with, but I thought it would be quite nice to deboss it into the card. Sorry, you couldn't see that. To deboss it into the card and then use a black pen to pick out the detail, which will tie in the darker tones from the bicycle and the shadow of the love sentiment as well. So what we're going to do is, this actually has cut lines for the stitching, but they're not going to cut it out, they're just going to cut into the card. And then the To My Special Friend is debossing into the card. So what we want to do is place this where we want it on our card. You can have all of your elements to get your perfect placement. Have all of your elements here ready in the rough position you want them to be positioned in. So you want the bicycle to be on the tag in this kind of positioning on the card. Make sure this is up the right way, and then add this to that top section of your card, and use a little piece of your Craft Perfect die tape to tape that into position. We can then move all of our elements out of the way and run this through our tangerine. And even though this is sort of like a debossing kind of die, we're using our same cutting sandwich that we always use. So our orange plate and our white plate. And we can remove our die to reveal our debossed and slightly die cut kind of impression on here. So how you get it from this to this is just using a fine black pen, and we just want to trace over the details. So I'm going to use a 0.2 fine black pen to trace around the edge of this detail and give it a faux stitched kind of look. So I know it already has that stitching, but we're going to kind of join it up so it looks like sewing machine sort of stitching around the edge. So we're just literally going to draw between all of the stitches, and it doesn't matter if your pen jumps out, because we actually want a little bit of a messy look, so you can deliberately jump out a little bit to make it look like a thread end. And we can just double scribble around it. Does not have to be neat at all. We're going for that kind of slightly messy sewn sort of look for this. And we can go over it a second time if we want to add a little bit more scribbliness to it as well. And then we've got our kind of like hand sewn sort of look to that top portion. And then to fill in these letters and make them legible, like this one here, we are literally just going to colour it in with our pen. And because we have got that debossed detail in there, you can see how lovely and deep it debosses, we've got a channel to follow with our pen. So we can actually just take our pen and follow around that debossed channel to colour in our letters. And it still looks really lovely and neat because we've got such a deep channel that we're not going to go out of the line. You can go a bit slower to make sure that you don't go out of the line, but it's just a lovely way to accent one of these debossed sentiments and make it a little bit more legible. So there we go, we have got our To My Special Friend sentiment all coloured in just with a fine black pen, and it's still gorgeously legible and it just makes it stand out a little bit more. Plus it's going to tie in with our black elements on our bicycle as well. So all that's left to do now is to stick it all together. And if we feel like anything else needs a little bit of a black border, taking our fine black pen again, we can actually add a scribbled black border to this bottom tag too, just to give it a little bit of an outline. This is optional, you don't have to do this. But when I was making the original card, I just felt like a little bit of a scribbled black border would tie in the scribbliness of the debossed sentiment that we added around the edges. So we've now got sort of like a faux stitched border on that too. So now all we have to do is stick the rest of it together. And once we've stuck everything onto the card, all we have to do is add that onto our card blank. And there we go, we have our finished card using the gorgeous Spring Has Sprung collection from Tonic. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how easy it is to put this little bicycle together and create a gorgeous simple card using this stunning spring collection. So thank you so much for watching. Bye!